All right, we'll get started. Good morning. Thanks everyone for being here. Good to see y'all. And thanks to any of the new people who are here. I see a lot of familiar names, but a couple new ones as well. So glad y'all could join. I have just a couple of quick announcements before we get started with the programming for today. So first of all, I want to make everyone aware that we're recording this call, and moving forward, TxDOT is going to post the recordings and the materials from these deep dive calls on their publicly accessible .gov site. And I think TxDOT has also started posting the Teams link to join this call publicly. So just be aware that this information and recording and materials will be public access. I know that's a little different than how we have handled these calls in the past, so I wanted to make everyone expressly aware of that. Secondly, we had our spring in-person meeting on April 23rd. It was a great success. Thanks to all who came and joined virtually. We had some good roundtable discussions, good presentations about local, regional, and statewide innovations. All of those materials and the recording from that meeting are also available on TxDOT's website, so you can access that and review if you missed it. And then lastly, we talked about this a bit, but I just want to remind everyone to register for the Texas Innovation Invitational. That's our annual conference. It will be in Fort Worth, June 16th through 18th this year. I will drop the website and registration link in the chat. There we go. So make sure to register, share that out. If you have questions about the programming or agenda or any of that, happy to chat more about it and share more information. Oh, thanks, Marcia. Tag team. Awesome. Okay, so today's program I'm looking forward to. We've got 3 presentations that are tied together. So we'll hear first from Larry Kelly, who's the director of the Port of Port Arthur. The Port won an FY22 RAISE grant, same program as Build and Tiger. The name has kind of changed a couple of times. Their RAISE grant was focused on multimodal infrastructure and job creation. So Larry will talk us through that. And then we'll have a presentation from a team at City of San Antonio. David and Murray are both on. They also had a RAISE grant for Culebra Road focused on safety improvement. So they'll cover that, and then more broadly, their Vision Zero strategy. And then lastly, we'll hear from a team at UT San Antonio who has related work to that RAISE Culebra grant that is focused on Vision Zero and mid-block crossings. It's more of a research project, but there are learnings and relationships and collaboration opportunities between City of San Antonio's RAISE grant and that research project. So we'll get started. We should have time at the end for questions, but feel free to drop them in the chat throughout, and I'll try to facilitate that. And then, as always, I'm happy to connect folks afterwards for additional conversation as well. So Larry, I know I am sharing your slides for you. Let me get them pulled up. Here we go. How's that look?
Looks perfect. Looks like Port Arthur.
Good. Okay, kick us off, Larry. Thank you.
All right. Well, Anna, thank you so much, and to the group. Certainly appreciate the invite. I did put a tie on for this, but I happen to be in a hotel and I'm attending a meeting TxDOT here in an hour or so. So I happen to be in Austin today, but certainly appreciate everybody's time. I'll roll through part of this pretty quick. This is just more of a discussion. Welcome your feedback. I can elaborate on wins and losses and everything else. But just for situational awareness, we're located in Southeast Texas on the Sabine-Neches Waterway. The aerial image that you see is Sabine-Neches Waterway. You can see Sabine Lake in the background, and in the far background is the Gulf of Mexico. And we are about, as a crow flies, about 9 miles from the Gulf. At that entrance, there's robust industrial development. Since that image was taken, Cheniere Energy over on the east side of the Sabine River.
Hey Larry, I think you were muted. There was some background noise, and I think someone maybe accidentally muted you. Yeah, you're good now. Thanks.
And that concludes my presentation. So all I was adding for situational awareness was, and on the western side, we have under construction the Cheniere, on the east side, Cheniere LNG, which is operating, and then on the west side, Golden Pass and Sempra Port Arthur LNG facility. Right now, we've got probably 10,000 workers traveling down that little road that you see on the far right-hand side, in and out of there. And we are neighbors to Valero, Motiva within a 1 mile of the facility, and then Total to the east. City of Port Arthur has the highest crude refining capacity than any city in the nation. We also have relatively high rates of unemployment, which comes to the grant. So if you don't mind, next slide, that's probably enough of just seeing where we're at. Probably a few people that call have been through Port Arthur. Certainly known for the food and a number of athletes that have come out of there, and entertainers. But just real quick, as a public port entity, we may be an odd bird on the call, but we all pursued a very similar grant program. We're a break bulk port. While we do handle some containers, our focus are largely in cargo that is sized and fit and placed in a ship and removed. The commodities that you see on the right, we handle eucalyptus pulp and other forms of pulp that go into making products that you know and enjoy and find on your store shelves, like Viva, Charmin, Bounty, Cottonelle, Kleenex. Our waterway probably handles more of that fiber between ourselves and Port of Beaumont than any other region or waterway in the nation. The waterway is also known for being the third highest tonnage on liquid energy exports and the like. Some of the other commodities we handle are aluminum, dimensional building products, that would be 2x4s, 2x12s and such. We figured we handled enough last year to build about 15,000 homes in Texas. And one of the things that we're very proud of is we're one of 3 designated strategic seaports in Texas: Corpus Christi, Port of Beaumont, and ourselves. Combined with Port of Beaumont, they handle more than we do, but collectively we handle more military cargo than any other commercial ports in the nation or commercial waterways in the nation. So very happy to do that. We also move liquid energy. And through the business side of the port itself, over the years, the past 5 or 6 years, we've been acquiring property, able to put some of that property, repurpose it, and put it to work in ground leases. We export with pellets. We've actually been doing that for about 10 years. We are Texas's largest biomass exporter. We're also the only biomass exporter in Texas, so that helps there. So just kind of an overview of what it is that we do. We're on a really busy section of our waterway, and if you could go to the next slide. A couple images of the port. The one in the upper left is a berth 6 expansion that we just completed. That was tied to a Build 2018 project. Matter of fact, we're going to do the dedication on Friday. Congressman Weber's attending. You can see in the background there the pellet silos that we do, the bulk export. The rest are images, a few helos there, and that's what a safety meeting looks like in a port, with everybody wearing their various shades of fluorescent orange and yellow. Next slide, please. And we have a pretty robust capital expansion plan. Berths 5 and 6 constitute the most of it, well over $110 million in investment for a small town and a relatively small port. That's been a big project. We're out of marine construction for a little while. We're doing a lot of backlands development, laydown yards, and we do have a building replacement. And part of what we do, or a big component of why we're here, it's for local job creation and economic development. And that leads us to the grant application. And in the work that we do, we can put probably more people to work with a stabilized laydown area than I can with a building, which leads us to, if you could, the next slide. That was kind of an eye test. Is what brings us here today is the 2022 RAISE grant application. Those of you that have participated in the USDOT discretionary grant programs, I go back to submitting in the very first round if it was 2008 or I think 9. We were sent back to the dugout. We were 0 for 9 before we got our first grant. That was in 18. Not very successful. There's not a lot of quit in us, or I'm not smart enough to to give up, but we applied through all the various programs. Our first success was in 2018, the project to value that I just showed you. The next large grant, we've had some other grants in there that we've earned. The PIDP is another one, and then in 22 we applied for and received the RAISE grant, and it's for 25 acres of laydown and a building rehabilitation. And if you're familiar with our community, we've got a lot of old derelict buildings. The port's been on a campaign the past 5 or 6 years of acquiring some, those that can be repurposed for potential lease or port use. We're doing so. Some we've torn down, and either they're going to create laydown space or repurpose for other reasons. So it leads us to this grant application. And if you're doing your math, yes, we received it in the fall of 22, applied in the spring of 22. In the spring of 23, Secretary of Transportation Buttigieg came and paid a visit on his way through to, I think, Lake Charles, and on the bridge replacement. And we thanked him as a Southeast Texan that occasionally travels over to Louisiana. Thank you for replacing that bridge. Even though it wasn't in Texas, the project that we have here, it's roughly the federal portion is 13.6 million, about a $19 million total. That was at the time of application. If you're doing your math, it's 2025, and we're still in the NEPA process. So here's the challenge. This project did not require a U.S. Army Corps of Engineer permit. We've gone through the technical review, we've gone through the legal review, and the like, but where we're at today is we're still waiting to finalize some of the NEPA. And most of you are aware that have applied for these type grants. It all begins with a notice of funding availability. Kind of begins with an idea on the page. Principally, I've done most of the writing on these. We have over the years brought in some assistance on the benefit cost and some other measures of support, but pretty much this was all done in-house. We're a relatively small team. There's 22 or 23 of us, and that includes a half a dozen people working in maintenance and operations and such. So just kind of giving you just a 30,000 foot view of what this looks like. One of the things that is a highlight of the project, and I believe attract the attention of the reviewers. One, we had a very positive BCA. I've come over the years to, I don't know, I have my own thoughts on the BCA development. As long as it's positive, it's good. When you hear or see of ones that are in multiples of 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, you start asking some questions. This one did come in at 2.57. It's for emission reduction. We can reduce truck idling times. We can leverage drop and hook, and we do add to the usable infrastructure for truck queuing areas and for truck waiting areas where potentially a driver could overnight or park and regain their hours of service in an area that's not in a residential area, which I know that's a challenge for probably some of the communities that are on the call here. So that's kind of where we're at on it today. I want to make best use of everyone's time. Just hit the high points of this. Available for questions now or later. What will this look like, and when will it happen? I wish I could tell you. We it's one more month, and we ran through a lot of the problems that maybe some on the call have experienced. That it feels like it's a stack of paper, and then you have one edit and it goes back, and does it go back to the bottom of the pile or the top of the pile? I'm sure we could commiserate on that, but we're focused on doing this. We do have some concerns of increased cost of construction of what's happened since 22, but Anna, I will pause there if that's okay. All right.
Yes, thank you, Larry. Super interesting. If you have questions for Larry, feel free to put them in the chat or come off mute. I've got two that come to mind. So the first question I have for you, Larry, you mentioned that y'all won a build grant in 2018, and then this RAISE grant. There may have been some others in between. I saw your list of the port improvement grant program and those sorts of things. Can you talk about how y'all's approach has changed over the years when these programs are available? Are you learning things that you're incorporating into new applications? What is that perspective over time?
Well, what's Einstein's definition of insanity and doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result? Well, maybe that was my fault for the first 9. I tend to think that our experience with the program, where you saw a lot of funds directed, maybe not so much on the technical side of the technical merit. We were consistently receiving favorable feedback on the grants, and this is one thing I would encourage any of the listeners is to request, if you're unsuccessful, certainly request the debriefing. I've had it range from lip service and just caught somebody in the office to here of late a very professional, well thought out, constructive discussion that added value to our subsequent application. So I would say that feedback's welcome. I'm married. I get feedback all the time. I try to take it the best I can. That one is probably the most important part of it. We have gone through, and I'm more of a technical writer. I probably bored most of the people on this call, but I have a tendency to do that, and it was more of the words on the paper than the flash. And so we have adapted a little bit on graphic or visual representations. I was basically dropping photos into a Word document, and I was told, hey, you got to make this a little bit sexier. And for me, if it's steak or sizzle, I'll take the steak any day. And I hope the reviewers certainly do. So that's probably my best takeaway that we've had. The other thing is we have been very successful. Actually, there's 2 grants that are in the PIDP program that's going to take down a building. So we've been, proportionally for our size, I just think compared to other ports in the nation, we've been very successful. I really feel the harder you work, the luckier you get, as long as it's based on technical merit. And the other thing that I'll stop after this last statement, is you have to own it. You cannot farm this out. And I know that maybe there's consultants on the call and they're going, "Oh, get this guy off of there." Not saying we don't make use of the consultant, but it needs to be somebody that has to live it to be able to make sure that they put the heart and energy, because it is in there. We talk at great length about some of the socioeconomic problems we have in our community, poverty being one. By all measures of economic distress, we exceed local, state, national levels. Certainly resonates. We're going through some changes in those programs with the change in administration. I noticed the NOFO for the PIDP program went from about 104 pages down to 45. So we're trying to move and adjust with that. But I'll stop there.
That's helpful. Yeah. I really I think people can relate to that about, there's sizzle and there's steak, but at the end of the day, you have to know the day in and day out, and people can see through that, and it comes out if you know it or not. The other question I have for you, just quickly, so ports are so interesting because there's so many stakeholders. You have a certain jurisdiction, and then there's the locals that are nearby. There's the shippers and carriers. Can you talk about what that looks like when you're putting an application like this in? So you mentioned, for example, optimizing truck routes. Do y'all coordinate with shippers? What does all of that look like?
Yes, ma'am, absolutely. And forecasted data, historical data is certainly relevant, but we have the shipper, the beneficial owner of the cargo. We have them dialed in on this. With the evolution of carbon crediting and trying to green up the supply chain, they've become much more active, both on the vessel side, but also the inland distribution side. And and for many on the call, that truck's going to roll through your town, and that rail car. And I'll just say 80 to 90% on the ton of cargo that we handle that is break bulk moves by rail. And so we're a big user. We're on the, what's today, the CPKC Railroad. For those of you that don't know, KCS Railroad, we were the terminus. It was named for a guy named Arthur Stillwell, Port Arthur. So rail is very important to us. And we're also served by one rail carrier. We can get on UP as well, but it's an integral part. We certainly reach out to them for measures of support, like support letters. many of you on the call, you go ahead and ask for the support letters. You don't know if anybody ever reads them or not, but that's certainly a box that we check. I think it's kind of like in old days of not having your name in the phone book, you weren't going to get a call. And I think in the absence of demonstrating local community support, it probably works against you a little bit.
Yeah. Thanks, Larry. If any others have questions for him, please reach out. I'll share Larry's info, and I encourage y'all to connect with him. Super interesting. I appreciate it, Larry. The raise grants and Build and Tiger are so interesting because they're the scope is huge. We'll hear from San Antonio next, and their project will look totally different than y'all's, but big infrastructure and really exciting.
And last thing, we were submitting unsuccessfully in PIDP, and we had members within the TxDOT and said, "Hey, how about fishing in the raised pond? There's not too many ports that apply." That's what drove that. Thank you.
Right. Yeah. Good info. Thanks, Larry. Okay, I will pass it to David and Murray now with City of San Antonio to share partly about their raise grant. And like I said, y'all will see really how vast the raise scope can be. And then secondly, about their Vision Zero strategy, which ties into the raise grant and also ties into our presentation from UTSA, which will be our third. So Murray, I'll pass it to you. We've got your slides. I think you're set.
All right. So yeah, my name's Murray Myers. I'm with the Transportation Department. So really quickly, if you can react and just give me a thumbs up if you've heard of Vision Zero before and are aware of the program. Awesome. That's great. So fun fact with Vision Zero, San Antonio was the first city in Texas to adopt Vision Zero. So, it's always healthy for there to be competition amongst Texas cities. So I just had to throw that out there. We were the first. But yeah, just to really quickly cover this, since everyone is already aware of Vision Zero, if you think back in the 1950s, how were people driving on roads? What was the approach? That culture of if you're on the roadway, you're driving, and if you're walking and you're biking, you deserve to get hit. That culture and that mindset has kind of permeated through several decades. So Vision Zero is more about the paradigm shift, whereas before it was inevitable that there would be deaths and everyone has to take their individual responsibility on the roadways, and it's about saving lives being expensive. Now it's traffic deaths are preventable. We are to integrate the human mind or the flawed human mind in our engineering approach. Instead of calling them collisions, we call them crashes to humanize what happens in these situations. And it's about the overall systems approach. So recently, we updated our Vision Zero action plan. It has 60 key actions in these areas. As you all are probably aware, safer streets, safer people, safer speeds, and safer vehicles. Today, we'll focus on safer streets, and you'll see a couple of examples of those actions with quick builds and analyzing corridors and implementing infrastructure. And as a part of the analysis, what we did was we developed the high injury network and the high risk network. So if you think of the high injury network, you're getting in that DeLorean, and sorry, I'm a huge fan of Back to the Future, so I always reference it. But if you get in the DeLorean and you go back in time, that's what the high injury network is. You're looking at crashes from the past, 2018 to 2023, which is that first map that you see there on the left. It incorporates fatalities and severe injuries. And if you're not aware, severe injury means that you're coming back from that crash, not the same person. You've probably lost a limb, a leg, or an arm. So these are pretty significant crashes. So those types of crashes receive the most weight in the scoring. And you can see on the left how we've identified the high injury networks within San Antonio. The image in the middle is our high risk network. So looking into the future, based on the specs of the roadways, the widths, the speeds, the traffic flow, we try to determine where are the crashes most likely to occur in the future. They're not occurring now, but within the next 2 to 5 years, they're likely to happen. So what types of projects do we need to consider? And then the map on the right is the high injury network with some of our hotspots. So how we took this data and started using it for our projects, this is Calabro, which David will talk about in a second. This is a zoomed in version of the high injury network. And you can see here in the rectangle Calabra, and there are multiple things going on. The pink or the magenta is the bicycle high injury network, which means there's been a significant number of bicycling crashes or deaths on these roadways. The purple is the pedestrian high injury network, which means there's been people that have been hit or killed in these areas. And then the orange yellow is the all modes, which means it's dangerous for all modes: vehicles, motorcycles, pedestrians, and cyclists. In terms of our federal grant awards, David will talk more about the RAISE planning grant in a second. We were also awarded the Safe Streets for All grant for our Quick Builds program last year. What that is it's identifying, demonstrating, and evaluating low-cost, high-impact safety countermeasures on the city's high injury network, with the goal of being that we're delivering these projects at 1/5 of the cost and 1/7 of the time. So that includes the program includes identifying 5 pilots, implementation of those pilots, monitoring those pilots for 6 months, and then evaluating how do we continue the program long term. In 2022, we were awarded the Safe Streets for All grant for Zarzamora, which included 8 mid-block crosswalks, pedestrian hybrid beacons, refuse islands, and vegetation, along with safety campaigns for 10 of our high injury network corridors. So in each of these, you can see how the city has used data to drive each of our projects. We're a very data-driven organization, and all that we do, not just in transportation, our department, but also public works and across the organization in our 40+ departments. So with that, I'll pass it to David.
David, I'm not sure if we're getting anything from you. Are y'all hearing him?
I can't hear you, Dave.
Okay. David, it looks like you're unmuted, but we're not getting audio from you. Let's see. I'll send him a chat message, and then worst case, we can pivot to UTSA and then come back to David. No audio. Okay, let's see. Why don't we switch gears while David gets audio sorted out? And Murray, this is actually a great segue into the UTSA work. So I mentioned at the beginning of the call, David Macbeth with City of San Antonio was going to present on their Culebra Road RAISE grant, which is focused on Vision Zero, pedestrian safety improvements, some of the things that Murray outlined with the broader Vision Zero scope. There's a team at UTSA, Eslam and Dr. Sarif and Dr. Sommer, who are focused on just that, evaluating high-risk pedestrian mid-block crossings and some of the things you talked about, Murray, looking at quick build interventions and success rates there. So Eslam, if you're ready to present, can we switch to you, and then we'll come back to David to close us out with the Culebra Road project?
Yes, I'm happy to.
Can y'all hear me now?
Oh, David.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
All right,
course.
all good. Never mind. Back to the original plan.
Okay, I'm sorry. So sorry. I thought it was working earlier, and then something happened, and
No
I think
worries. It always goes like that. You're good now. And then Murray, if you'll reshare. Okay, I think we're set.
Okay.
All good. Thanks, everyone.
I'll talk really fast in case it goes out. David Macbeth, glad to be here. I'm an assistant city engineer with Public Works with the City of San Antonio. And what I want to do today is really kind of show you how we built a plan to be able to achieve the RAISE grant approval. And it really started back in 2022. We did our transportation department did a corridor study along Culebra Road to really look at what the future of that corridor was. We knew we had a high pedestrian and vehicular crash history in that area, as Murray said. But what we wanted to do is try to take that corridor, really study it, and we did a lot of data collection. We had some very robust public engagement that helped us build a corridor vision, and then started from there developing concepts and a prioritization plan So that really, there was a, probably at least a year-long effort to develop a study to really understand what the future of this Calabria Road corridor could look like. And then in addition to that, next slide. Okay, this shows the raised grant submission area. So basically on the far right side at Calabria, there's a section from Bandera to General McMullen. I'll show you in a moment. That's the bond project that we're actually designing and going to build. And then the corridor study for the raised grant application really started at General McMullen, and it went about 5 miles to the west to Loop 410. So it's about a 5-mile corridor study. And obviously this is kind of in the west side of San Antonio, in a high poverty area, but also a very critical corridor for businesses and things for economic development. So we put in an $8 million grant request, and we were going to match $3 million with that from our bond project. That was a 2022 bond for $11 million total funding for this. And this was to do schematic design and environmental permitting for this entire corridor. So it kind of gives us positioning to go after future grants for design and construction. Next slide. So this shows the actual bond project that we're working on from Bandera Road to General McMullen along Calabria. So we had $18 million in the bond. We reserved 15 to design and construct this Calabria Road project, which is nearing design completion and will go into construction late this year for this corridor. And that shows, the feds that we've made a real commitment to this corridor. We did the transportation study. We've got $15 million invested already, starting some improvements in the corridor. So we're very invested in the corridor with the current bond program. Next slide. So this is just a couple of pictures of the existing corridor. It looks pretty bleak, typical urban street. A lot of space for cars, not a lot of space for pedestrians and bikes. And so, as Murray said, this has a high crash history rate. Sidewalks are in poor condition, so accessibility and safety for pedestrians and cyclists is very bad. We had drainage issues out here with flooding and poor drainage. And then, of course, outdated traffic signals and equipment all along the corridor. So it's very overdue for an update in infrastructure improvements. Next slide. So this is the development that came out, or the plan that came out of initially through the transportation study and then through the development of the current bond construction project. Basically, we're coming in and we're keeping the same number of lanes for access, but we are narrowing them to help slow down vehicles. But we are really focused on enhancing the sidewalks on one side, and then an opportunity for shared use path, 10-foot shared use path on the other side, so that we have some protected bike facilities on the corridor. And that required a little bit of right-of-way acquisition in some cases, but for the most part, we were able to fit this cross-section within the entire corridor of the project. Also, opportunities for vegetation and buffer areas, trees for shading as well along the corridor. So next slide. So with the RAISE grant, how were we successful? And like I mentioned before, we had this previous transportation study, and that helped with the project readiness. We had already engaged the public on it. We'd gotten, very good stakeholder engagement. We also invested in the 2022 bond program with that $18 million, 15 of which we used for a construction project, and $3 million we reserved for the local match when we applied for the grant. We were able to successfully get a lot of project support from the stakeholders and the partners that were engaged when we did that transportation study. So we had a lot of community support for the project. And then on the merit criteria, I think we scored really well when we submitted for the RAISE grant. Again, the safety issue with high crash history, we were really aimed at reducing the pedestrian and vehicular and bicycle crashes in the corridor, which are very high for San Antonio in this corridor. Sustainability is always a merit criteria, and this provided an opportunity for us to do some sustainability work with some of the landscaping and trees and materials that we use for construction. Quality of life, again, just being able to improve expanded transportation access for an area that is low income, but also opportunities for economics for this historically disadvantaged area of the city. Mobility and connectivity, again, just be able to provide better pedestrian and bike access, but also via our transit system in San Antonio. We're able to work with them to upgrade a lot of the via stops in the corridor as well. And then it provides an opportunity to just really upgrade the state of repair and the equipment that's in there along the corridor. The partnership and the collaboration was key. And then innovation, just really be able to utilize the funding from the voter approved bond program, just be able to use some of the tools that we have for SA Speak Up, engaging the community and embracing that innovative technology that's available today by the Smart Cities Roadmap and the Equity Atlas. So basically all those really helped us get across the finish line. In fact, we were not successful in our initial RAISE grant. We came back the next year and got some good feedback. Like the gentleman from Port Arthur said, just really work on getting that feedback from the grant folks. And in this case, we were very close in the first one. We were able to do some tweaks with this second application, and the collaboration with a proven transportation grant pursuit partner really helped us out. They were, in our case, we utilized a consultant to be able to get us across the finish line, and they were really, I think, a key part of us being able to get this grant approval. Next slide. So it's kind of status of where we're at. We were awarded the grant in June of 2024 last year. Since that time, we've been working with FHWA, which is the administrator of this particular grant. We've been working on getting the funding agreement between the city and FHWA developed. We are very close to getting that. Of course, with some of the stuff that's gone on with the feds early in this year, we've had a little bit of a pause with FHWA, but we feel like that's going to work out, and we're going to be able to continue our work very soon and get the agreement done. But also, we've been working on getting an RFQ together for consultant to hire to do the schematic development, also environmental permit clearance through the TxDOT environmental. They've delegated, FHWA delegates their environmental compliance with the TxDOT environmental office. So we'll work with them. And then we also want to try to maybe take it as far as getting a design of a segment of this 5-mile corridor so we could get that further into a project readiness and really just position ourselves to be in a better place to go after construction funding to continue the corridor in multiple phases. It's about, probably $150 million corridor improvement with 5 miles. So we feel like we're going to have to do it in phases, but this positions ourselves to be able to really achieve that goal of getting started with the rest of the corridor. So we would commence with the design and the environmental upon approval of the agreement with FHWA, and then we'll go through that selection of the design consultant later this year. We'll hopefully be able to put that RFQ out this summer and go through the selection process and get that design process started by the end of this year. And I think that's the last slide, Murray. All right. Well, I guess I don't know if you want to take any questions or anything right now. We can do that.
Yeah, thank y'all so much. Great information there. And I think some similar lessons learned from Larry Kelly with Port of Port Arthur about getting feedback. Y'all as well submitted multiple times And I think the piece about having some of the preliminary planning and data analysis done to demonstrate that we're invested in this and we've done some of the background on this project goes a long way. So great info here. Questions for David or Murray about the San Antonio work? David, can you share more about SA Speak Up, that outreach tool? I haven't heard about that before.
Sure, it's our communications and engagement folks through that department, the citywide. They've come up with an SA Speak Up, which is a tool that we have. It's an online tool for folks to go on and look at any project that's active. Also, we use that to I believe broadcast a lot of our messaging out to the public. Then I don't know, Stephanie, if you wanted to add to that, but basically it's a much higher level tool than we've had in the past of engaging with the public. And yeah.
Yes, it allows us to post any of our documents or updated meetings for the public to attend to. All of that information will live on SA Speak Up. So each of our bond projects have their own dedicated SA Speak Up page. You can Google saspeakup.com and you could Google Culebra Road 2022 bond, and our page will pop right up and it'll show you all the PowerPoints we've presented. Like I said, any documents or share any public meeting dates. We also use SA Speak Up to post any of our agendas. So for city council agendas or council committees. So it's a multi-used tool for all departments citywide and city business.
Great.
Thanks, Steph.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thanks, David. Thanks, Murray. Thanks, Stephanie. Other questions for either Larry or David and Murray and San Antonio team? All right. Well, thank you all so much for these presentations. I think, oh, Larry, do you have a question?
Yeah,
You're
just
muted.
a real quick question.
Oh,
And I'm really fascinated by your outreach on electronic forums. Are you hosting periodic in-person listening sessions or meetings? We're doing something once every 90 days. We got a bunch of different projects going on, and mixed bag of turnout. If we provide cookies and punch, you might get a little better turnout or something like that. I'd like to hear from the group or even the audience of how that works for everyone. Thanks.
good question,
Yeah.
Larry.
We, for our bond program, which that's my role is in project delivery for streets and drainage bonds, but it's kind of I think we've done a much better job in this last bond program to really do better outreach to the public, and I think we've seen some improvement on attendance at some of the public meetings, but getting the messaging out early and broadcasting it in multiple different ways through this SA Speak Up, but we also have an e-blast that we send out to the corridor improvements. So when we have a public meeting, we really try to do multitask and do mailers, SA Speak Up, we do e-blasts, and communicate with our council office as well so they can broadcast that through their systems and try to get as much engagement as possible. Doesn't work all the time, but like you said, cookies and punch, maybe that's the key. But you know what, we have seen I think we're doing a much better job more recently and trying to draw in people and really get the feedback that we need. We had really good attendance at some of the corridor study meetings as well. So we just try to get better and better.
There are others on the call. In the interest of time, I do want to transition to UTSA, but there's others on the call who come to mind. I see Ray and Kat from City of Austin. I live in Austin, and the walk, bike, roll engagement I thought was great. It was like an interactive GIS map where you could pin intersections or bike lanes that you liked or didn't like and give feedback that way. I thought that was a great example of digital public engagement. So kudos to the Austin team. Okay, I will transition now. Thanks so much for this discussion, and I'm happy to connect folks afterwards if there are more questions. Eslam, I think that you are presenting on y'all's behalf. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I will hand the floor to you to round us out. I think the goal today is to show kind of the spread of what raise grants and multimodal and pedestrian safety work can look like. Port Arthur was kind of big picture, heavy infrastructure, a complex use case. We looked at City of San Antonio's RAISE grant and Vision Zero work, and then Eslam and the UTSA team will conclude us with really that data-driven piece on looking at evaluating some of these interventions in high-risk intersections, or mid-blocks, pardon me. So Eslam, we've got your slides, and then I'll hand the floor to you to take us through y'all's research work. And you're currently muted.
Oh, thank you. Okay.
We've got you now.
All right, perfect. All right. Can you see my slides okay?
Yeah, looks good. Thank you.
All right, perfect. All right, thank you very much, Anna, and hello everyone. Today I'm going to be presenting about our TxDOT funded project, select higher risk pedestrian mid-block crossings and perform safety evaluations for developing pedestrian crossing countermeasures. We are University of Texas San Antonio, Department of Civil Engineering. This project is led by Dr. Hadim Sharif, Samer Dusuki, Jose Weissman, Dr. John Joseph, and myself, Islam Eid. We'll go over a quick introduction and problem statement and what is our goal with the project, methodology of how we assess our hotspot locations and our site assessment strategy, and we'll follow it up by findings from the site observation and some conclusions. And in addition to that, we will evaluate a small evaluation on current mitigation measures that are already present. As an introduction, quickly to give a background about mid-block crashes. Essentially what we're doing is very similar to the City of San Antonio, but we're focusing more on mid-block crashes rather than all crashes or pedestrian crashes. So pedestrian crashes are growing concern in Texas. The total walk mile traveled have increased by 16% from 2009 to 2017, but the reported pedestrian fatalities have rose by 46%. There is a high rise in death rates relative to pedestrian activity. And I believe San Antonio being one of the most critical cities actually out of Texas to have high pedestrian fatalities. In 2019, Texas recorded an average 1.14 pedestrian deaths per 100,000 residents, and that is 26% higher than the national average of 0.9%, or sorry, 0.9. Nationwide, 75% of pedestrian fatalities occur at mid-block locations. And of course, these crashes will be more critical or severe because these are areas that pedestrians are not expected to be. San Antonio, Houston, Dallas being our main focus for our research, as they report the highest number of pedestrian crashes in the state every year. To give you like a general vision, this is nationwide. This is just not just Texas, but I just wanted to highlight how mid-block crashes are number of mid-block crashes relative to intersection crashes, and you can see, the blue line represents the mid-block crashes, and it's almost a ratio of 4:1, depicting how severe the issue is at mid-block or jaywalking. So there's a need to identify high-risk locations in San Antonio, Houston, and Dallas, and of course to start integrating some interventions. There's also needs to improve understanding of the current commonly used crash mitigation treatments in Texas, and these high-risk mid-block crossings also need to be have to be evaluated based on the pedestrian crossing evaluated based on detailed crossing characteristics. So we want to see how pedestrians use the mid block, or how where to and from they're crossing, what interests them into risking per se by crossing at the mid block. Texas specific crash modification factors to be developed. That is our main goal, is to develop CMFs for specifically for Texas. So as I mentioned, we want to develop a system for TxDOT to help identify high-risk pedestrian mid-block crossings and select most effective treatments for each location. So our assessment methodology, we focused on the crashes from 2003 to 2023 from crash data for Dallas, Houston, and San Antonio. We did a GIS-based filtering, so to exclude crashes that occur at intersections or crashes that are intersection related. There are multiple types of crashes. We are just interested in mid-block crashes. We look at each crash and we create a 5-kilometer buffer zone around it, and we try to see the overlap between these crashes in order to find our hotspots. We also filtered the relevant roadways using TxDOT's roadway data map and inventory. And for data processing, some crashes we found that they are reported in places that maybe are not close to the roadway. So we did some snapping in order to ensure that all the crashes are in the correct places. And finally, we identified pedestrian crash hotspots and validated them using hexagon-based spatial analysis in ArcGIS. Here's a simple ArcGIS crash map. This is one road in Houston. It's a crash map of Main Street and Richmond Avenue, crossing Richmond Avenue. And the purple dots represent pedestrian crashes along that line. So some key crash data facts that we obtained for our hotspots. We did a total of 30 hotspots, top 10 for each of the cities mentioned. And we noticed that at 86% of all hotspots, there was a bus stop present either in near side or far side or both sides. And the highest days of the week of crashes were Fridays and Saturdays. And the time ranges were in the afternoon and at night. These were the top times. And the most contributing factors were pedestrian failed to yield, or number 2, which was intoxicated and intoxicated drivers. Yes. Moving on to site assessment strategy, we are essentially asking questions such as, we're looking at any reasons that would cause a pedestrian to cross at the mid block instead of an intersection. So we're looking at things like, are the pedestrian buttons functional at the intersection? We're looking also as if there's a median that sometimes encourages pedestrian to use it as a refuge when it's not necessarily designated for pedestrians, but it's just present there to split the lanes. We're looking at things such as if there's bulb outs, curb extensions, as mentioned before, near side or far side bus stops, turning lanes, and so on. We're also interested, of course, in looking at illumination, if it exists and if it's functional. The land use, specific land use for these areas, and we look at things such as marking quality, road characteristics, if there's a vertical slope or horizontal slopes on the road, any vegetation that might be blocking the signages for the drivers, and we also look at the pedestrian and driver interactions, such as how many drivers drove through the crosswalk without attempting to yield. Do drivers generally yield to pedestrians? Does group sizes affect how drivers would yield to pedestrians? Are there physical disability persons crossing the street, which might give it more priority? Number of pedestrians attempting to cross the intersection. We also looked at number of pedestrians that would use the intersection opposed to jaywalking. And we also focused a lot on bus stop activity and usage because we noticed that it is one of the main reasons why pedestrian would cross from one side to the other. For our recording method, we simply used dash cams in our cars, and we posted up at these 30 locations for an hour to 2 hours at the highest crash durations, which were afternoon and night. And we focused our study at these durations and recorded some footages. I added some examples here. This is one of the roads in San Antonio, Warsburg Road and Grandale. You can see some pedestrians crossing from left to right here. This is a Valero gas station on the left side, and this is a residential area on the right side. And this road has a vertical slope as well, which could contribute to some crashes for pedestrians not being able to see the car, maybe at the top of the road. And it can be affected as well. It can affect as well how drivers, how long it takes the drivers to stop for the pedestrian. Here's some examples as well. Another Valero gas station, pedestrians crossing from at night from left to right here to another plaza. And this is an example in Houston where pedestrians are crossing from one plaza to the other using the medians that are present there. This is a sheet of the questions that I mentioned earlier. We compiled them as such. We also are interested in looking at the temperature, if it has an effect on how patient is the pedestrian to cross at an intersection. And we develop a map as such that shows us where the pedestrians are focused on crossing to and from. So as I mentioned earlier in the example, the Valero gas station, we can see there's a lot of focus of pedestrians crossing from Valero gas station to the apartment complex on the right side. And there were multiple cases as well of pedestrians crossing from, they drop off at the bus stop and they would cross to the other side of the road. And as well down the road, we can see a lot of crossings occurred between the restaurants and the opposite side of the road. Our observed pedestrian destinations, third of all crossings in the 30 hotspots, more than third actually, were to and from gas stations. Usually there's multiple interests there for maybe food trucks and activities that are going on at the gas stations. We saw a lot of activity to and from gas stations and residential area, followed by shopping plazas, 6 out of 30 hotspots locations. And then there's a tie between medical centers and HEB plus slash HEB. As a conclusion, the jaywalking behavior is widespread. We've seen it, of course, mostly focused when there's a big distance between one intersection and the other. It's inconveniently located. Pedestrians choose to take the shortest path to their destination. Pedestrians as well often use the medians or the turning lanes as refuge to, of course, they perceive it as a safer alternative and to shield themselves from oncoming traffic. Of course, this behavior was most common near bus stops and commercial establishments and gas stations. Another thing that we noted is there is a high homeless activity primarily concentrated near bridges, which can virtually increase pedestrian volume in these areas. And the homeless activity contributes to jaywalking, unpredictable pedestrian movement. This activity, of course, increases pedestrian risks. and particularly in busy intersection and areas with high vehicle traffic. Drivers were seen frequently failing to yield to pedestrians, even in treated mid-blocks. But we also noted something interesting, that places where jaywalking is very prevalent and there's a high volume of pedestrian jaywalking, we noticed that there's some sort of jaywalking culture in these areas, and drivers anticipate pedestrians crossing in these areas, which we in that case we saw a lot of people yielding actually to pedestrians crossing. Most drivers are seen to comply with speed limits, but speeding were seen more prevalent at nighttime. Poor lighting was a main concern as well. There's a lot of lack of street lights in mid-block locations, as of course it's not expected for pedestrians to cross there. Low pedestrian activity at night in general, but there's still high activity between convenience stores, gas station, and bus stops throughout the night. And to repeat again, most reported crash factors include pedestrian fail to yield, intoxicated, and also fail to yield to pedestrians, which suggests that even at treated mid-blocks, there was some cases where the driver fails to yield to pedestrian as well. Other factors are driver
inattention. Assam, real quick.
Oh, yes.
I know you've got some conclusion slides here. I remember that y'all had a request for public agencies' input in the survey. I expect that folks will have to drop, at least some folks will have to drop now that we're at noon. Do you want to request input via the survey before we start to lose folks?
Yeah, yes. Okay, I'll try to get there very quickly. I have a minute, I believe. Yeah. Okay. You could drop it and I will go over it real quickly.
Okay, I will pull that up for you.
All right, perfect. So we just to conclude real quickly, analysis of current mitigation technology, we have most common mitigation technologies that are prevalent in Texas, at least, are the median or the median island, the rectangular rapid flashing beacon, as you can see in the middle, and pedestrian hybrid beacon on the right. So we looked at the hotspots that had these treatments, and we wanted to analyze, since the date of installation, how much did these mitigation measures help in reducing crashes and accidents. And as you can see here, this graph shows each line is when a mitigation measure was installed. So first off, the mid-block crossing being installed in 2008, it had a slight effect. And then in 2012, curb extension was installed. And in 2014, rapid flashing beacons were installed as well. Now, at a first glance, we can notice that it hasn't reduced the crashes since 2014, but we suspect that there is an increase in pedestrian volume in this area. It's a very lively area with a lot of bars, restaurants, and so on. Analytical data such as streetlight transportation analytics can help us determine if there was a high increase in pedestrian activity in this area over the years, indicating that there is a positive effect from these mid-block crossing treatments. There's another example on Wurzburg Road, which is a good example. We can see that since the mid-block installation, it had 0 crashes for almost 5 years in a row. And finally, in Zarzamora, we have a pedestrian hybrid beacon, which we can see more dramatic effect since its installation. The mid-block crossing was installed in 2011, and in 2022, it was followed by the pedestrian hybrid beacon. So, as I mentioned, we would like to hear your opinion. I believe your input will matter a lot for us to determine our best countermeasures for Texas. we're going to post a small survey in the chat, and we would like to hear your opinion. We have multiple mitigation measures. We want to see what professionals such as you perceive the safest mitigation measures when they're installed alone and in combination. It would only take 5 minutes, and we would really appreciate your input. And that is all from me. Thank you very much. And I'm open, me and Dr. Hatem are open for your questions.
Thank you, Essam. That was great. It's good to see how research like this and data like this can feed into some of the Vision Zero strategies discussed earlier. I'm sorry we went a few minutes over. I put Essam in the UTSA's team survey in the chat, and I'm sure they'd be open to y'all distributing that to peers in your agency. I'll stay on for a few minutes in case there are questions for Essam or the San Antonio team or Larry. I know some folks will have to drop off, but just in case there are questions, want to make sure that others who have to drop, no worries at all. I know we're a couple minutes over. Thanks so much for being here. We'll share out slides and recording afterward. All right, it looks like we're good. I'll send an email, and Essam and UTSA team, if there are questions, we'll pass them along to y'all. Thanks again to all of our presenters. This was a great discussion and conversation. I think there's things to learn from each of these 3 presentations. So I appreciate y'all Wednesday, and see y'all next time. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.